Yeah, hi everyone. I hope everybody is settled in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all those who've joined us from across the world. Thank you for joining us in today's session. Bottom line proven approach to insider risk, building evidence-driven defense in high-stakes environment. I'm Manish Krishnan, head of marketing at QKS Group, and I'll be your host for your webinar. If you have any questions throughout our session, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A section below. And to start ahead with the sessions, it's a pleasure to welcome our speakers today. Thomas Shena is a senior product manager at Bottomline, where he leads innovation in enterprise fraud detection solutions. Thomas brings in deep expertise in insider threat management and internal fraud, combining strong technical acumen with a strategic product mindset to deliver measurable business outcomes. His work focuses on leveraging advanced analytics and behavioral insights to stay ahead of evolving fraud risk. Complementing his practitioner perspective, I also welcome Sophia Ali, Associate Director and Principal Analyst at QKS Group, where she leads global research and strategic market outlook across the information security domain. Her expertise spans identity and access management, managed security services, and cybersecurity. She plays a key role in Spark Metrics research, market insight reports, and advisory engagements. Together, Tomar and Sophia brings a powerful combination of real-world execution and strategic insights, setting the stage for a high relevant discussion today. I welcome our audience and I welcome speakers to our today's session. Over to you guys.
Yeah. So thank you, Anish, for introducing us. So as you know that today's webinar topic is Bottomline's proven approach to insider risk and building evidence-driven defense in high-stake environment. So as we know that the insider risk has become one of the most difficult security challenges today, especially in financial services and regulated industries. The reason is very simple. Most incidents here start with trusted users, and we do not differentiate between the insider users, whether they are doing insider risk, whether they are doing malicious activities, because they have legitimate access and they are doing everyday work which is not obvious a policy violation. And at the same time, we have generative AI, cloud platforms, and collaboration tools that are creating again new exposure points or new attack paths that traditional monitoring tool such as DLP was never designed to handle. Then in this session, we are going to talk about and we are going to take a research-led look at how insider risk is evolving, what CISOs should be paying attention to, and why Bottomline continues to stand out in QKS Group Spark Matrix evaluation. So the agenda, as you can see here, is we are going to talk about insider risk management key market drivers, what are the technology trends into this market, what are the key technology differentiators that the vendors are offering, and then finally the Spark evaluation criteria, how we have evaluated various vendors globally into this matrix, and why Bottomline is leader into the Spark Matrix IRM. So to start with the first slide, we have in this slide, we are going to explain why insider risk management is accelerating globally and each driver is grounded with real life incidents and not only theory. So rising financial fraud and insider abuse. This is our first driver that is driving the market of IRM. And as we know that some of the largest financial losses in banking and payment came from insider misuse of legitimate access. They are having unauthorized trading, account manipulation, and process abuse. So this is how traditional fraud detection tool misses early behavior signals, and this is why organization needs or demand for an IRM solution with strong transactional monitoring, anomaly detection, and fraud analytics. The second is the most trending one, which is AI and Gen AI risk exposure. So over the last years, we have seen real incidents where employees unintentionally are uploading proprietary source code, customer data, and sensitive IP into public generative AI tools. So these kind of things is not being mitigated through an DLP system or DLP tools because they do not have access control and were never designed to understand the user intent in the AI-driven workflow. And this is why the user demand an IRM solution that can monitor user behavior, data movement, and AI usage in a contextual manner altogether. The next we have regulatory and audit pressure. So yeah, as regulators are penalizing organization not only for breaches, but also for falling to prove who is accessing sensitive data and why they are accessing those kind of data within an organization. And this continues insider monitoring and forensic readiness that are now audit expectations that are making IRM a compliance necessity. The next we have hybrid and remote work. So hybrid and remote work are fundamentally changing the insider risk equation nowadays. And some of the most high profile incidents such as internal tool misuse, insider enable account takeover were enabled by remote access combined with social engineering and credential abuse. So here the lessons for the CISOs is very clear. Location-based security is no longer working, and we need insider risk that must access continuously based on behavior regardless of where the employee is working. And next we have a security stack integration. So we have most of the tools that are integrating into IRM, and we have post-breach investigation that repeatedly shows insider signals which is scattered across SIM, IAM, and EDR tools, but they are never connected. And this should also track employees monitoring over social media, compliance, cloud service usage, and mobile monitoring. Thus, IRM is necessarily adopting as a layers that correlate these signals into actionable insights into a full security stack. And the last we have unified insider and external attack. So modern attack often begin externally through phishing or through credential compromise. But once inside, attackers behave like that they are from the inside. And it is very difficult to find out the difference between if the attack is happening from external thing, from credential compromise, or some insider is doing it. So high profile breaches in technology and consumer platform have shown how quickly external attack can exploit internal tool, collaboration platform, and cloud environment. So this convergence that we are talking about has erased the traditional boundary between insider and external threats, making behavioral-based detection the only viable approach in today's world. So most of the people will not resonate with this or will not agree with this thing that we are talking about unified of insider and external threat, because mostly the definition for IRM was mitigating the insider risk and not the external threat that is coming into the organization. And with this, I would just like to run a poll on to see what our attendees think about is the primary reason for organization that are accelerating investment in IRM today. So as we start the poll, and we can have few minutes to see the results here. And yeah, so the results obviously shows B, rising financial fraud and insider abuse across hybrid work model. So as I have mentioned, location, remote devices does not stop insider threats, and they can be done into any locations from inside the organization or outside the organizations. And for this, I would just like to invite Tomer to provide his insights on how he sees this as one of the major trend or major reason of organization that is investing into IRM solution.
And really happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I agree with everything you said in terms of the market driver. I would say that as we talk about insider fraud, insider risk in 2026, really the reality is things look very different from just a few years ago. So really the whole idea of an insider is kind of shifted. You mentioned it, right? It's not your employees, just your employees anymore. You've got cloud vendors, you've got remote operations, you've got offshore teams, contractors, basically a whole ecosystem of people with privileged access to your applications. Add to that recent use that you also mentioned about AI and Gen AI tooling in everyday work. That means that sometimes it's software that actually on behalf of people, right? So in these cases, it's not only about how hard it is to distinguish between human and software, but it also opens the door for both intentional and unintentional exposure to sensitive information or insider fraud. Now the tough part is that this is happening as many of our customers are transitioning their core banking and payment hubs into the cloud. So as they do so, they're still heavily relying and dependent on older systems that absolutely cannot break and are not just easy to update. And the reality is that those legacy systems were never designed for modern monitoring and observability, right? So, the tools just can't really show that what the users are actually doing within the application. Not to mention that, as you mentioned as well, the near future AI agents and AI, workflows, acting on behalf of people, creating this lack of visibility to create a lot of risk. And so this is why, from our point of view, where insider risk has really moved into the spotlight recently, this isn't just a security team problem anymore. Because when something goes wrong, really, it doesn't really stay with IT, right? It could have a massive impact, and we've seen in the news every now and then around how it impacts finances, how it impacts operations, and definitely how it impacts brand reputation, right? So this risk by itself demands better insight to what's happening inside systems, and really it has to happen in real time and not really after the fact. So this is exactly where we are focusing at Bottomline, right? Our goal is to give organizations with a clear, consistent visibility across both new and old systems, really without putting this stability of critical applications at risk. It just works everywhere. It doesn't force you to modernize everything just to understand what's going on. So in the heart of this is our visibility that I mentioned, is something that we call visual storytelling. So instead of digging through logs, which has been a practice for many years across SIM systems and other systems capturing user activities, is really to try to connect the dots between your data security applications, which I'd argue most customers that I talk to believe that are good enough, but really maybe they're not, because really hard to connect the dots. But really it helps you to get a clean screen-by-screen replay of what actually happened. And really it's becoming way more important now that with AI generated actions, it can take it can look very much like human actions, right? So when you get an alert that fires, you don't have to guess. With our technology, really you just have to watch the replay and really see the truth. And really what it helps us also is to make our investigation to go way faster. So our customers are telling us that instead of chasing clues across 4 or 5 different systems, they search for something like take a customer number or account ID, and instantaneously they see every related action across their environment. And this is exactly where insider fraud or misuse comes into the focus, because in these situations almost never that the insider is happening, or the fraud is happening in one system anymore. They span across multiple touch points, so that unified visibility, it's very hard to connect the dots. It's super important. And I think the last thing I'd say here is, very importantly is what's regulators are expecting. You mentioned also regulated industries, which is very much core to our customer base. Regulators are increasingly asking organizations to prove their monitoring activity responsibly and consistently. So again, I mentioned already, traditional logs seem to not cut it anymore. The visual evidence and the audit trails that we generate give organizations this level of clarity and defensibility that regulators both across cloud environments but also legacy applications are demanding from our customers. This is where our customers are telling us that sets us apart. And yeah.
So nice to know about what Bottomline is offering into around all these parameters and market drivers. So moving to next slide, we have this slide highlights how insider risk management market is evolving technologically and why this shift matters to CISOs and risk leaders of today's. So first is about identity-centric risk modeling and dynamic scoring. So as we know that the market is moving away from static rule toward real-time or dynamic identity-based risk scoring. So here now we try to emphasize on, or we try to understand, instead of asking whether a control was violated by an insider, or whether the organization now asks whether user behavior is becoming a risky in any context. So this allows early alert prioritization, enabling team to act before incident escalates. And this is how dynamic risk scoring works in today's IRM tools. Then the next is about AI-powered behavioral and fraud analytics. So again, with the help of machine learning, and it is increasingly used to uncover complex patterns such as slow fraud that will be occurring from many days through an insider, or the insider misuse which has overcome manual review or rule-based system. So these analytics significantly shorten investigation cycle and help organization to anticipate emerging risk rather than responding after the incident has already happened. The next is about expanding coverage to Gen AI and collaboration tool. Again, insider risk is no longer confined to email or file systems or internal tools. So now chat platforms, various collaboration tools, Gen AI platforms or interfaces have become new data leakage source or channels, we can say. Then, so here the IRM platforms are extending visibility into these environments as well, and they should increase all those things. So these environments should be kept under surveillance, and it should be keep pace with how work actually happens in today's world. And to detect and mitigate those kind of behavior deviation that the users are doing on these platforms will be easy to investigate and to mitigate those kind of threats. Then there is full context digital forensics. So organizations are now expecting more than alerts. They need defensive evidence, they need session reconstruction and timeline-based forensic enable investigation that should be faster and provide audit-ready documentation for compliance and reporting purpose. And here, various teams such as HR, compliance, legal, and internal review process teams is being evolved into all this forensics whenever an incident happens, and they take a legal action into what the things should be done after these kind of things has happened. And thus we require a full context report or full context digital forensics of the things. And lastly, we have privacy preserving monitoring. So as insider monitoring expands, so do privacy expectation as well. So modern IRM platforms are embedding anonymization and privacy by design approaches, allowing organization to balance the detection effectiveness and regulatory and employee trust requirement. So these are few of the technology trend that we see into the market. And with this, I again want to run a poll on which technology trend is the most critical for modern insider risk program to stay ahead of emerging threats. So we'll take few seconds and we'll see what is the results of this poll. So again, we see that AI-powered behavioral analytics and dynamic scoring is one of the major trend that users are focusing on. And yeah, of course, with the rise of machine learning, and they are learning fastly how the insider are behaving, and if there is any deviation into their behavior, they provide a dynamic risk scoring, and with that, the organizations can take actions. They can do what they want to do with those kind of user data and user identity. And with this, I would like to ask Tomer what he thinks about the AI-powered behavior analytics and dynamic scoring, and how Bottomline is emphasizing on this.
Yeah, sure. Well, on this slide, first, I really want to set the stage what insider risk management, insider threat management is all about. Really, most importantly, the types of risk we're helping organizations get ahead of. So if you look along the top, you'll see that the major buckets of insider risk that institutions worry about today, include things like data theft and insider fraud and policy violation and regulatory compliance. Now, the interesting thing is that these categories used to be pretty separate. So data theft, sounded more like a security issue. The insider fraud was really a fraud team problem. And then policy violation lived somewhere in operations or compliance, and then regulatory, expectation were kind of blended, owned by, different personas across the organization. Now, in 2026, these buckets have collapsed into almost like a single risk landscape. You might have an employee who is accessing the data they shouldn't be accessing to. Then they use the data to access or commit fraud, and then this is the entire chain ends up being a compliance event, right? So there's no longer different problems. It's one sort of connected story, right? So when we say insider threat management, what we really mean is really helping organizations detect and understand the full spectrum of the insider activity, right? Whether it's malicious, careless, or even AI assisted. And specifically to your point, with AI nowadays, the definition of user behavior is expanding, right? So that makes it even more important to have visibility into what actually is happening inside system. Now let's talk about what our platform actually does. So the first layer that you see here is really the out-of-the-box threat scenarios and profiling engine. We've been perfecting those risk scenarios for many, many years. And what they do, it's actually giving our customers with immediate coverage to the most common sort of insider risk situations and scenarios. Think unauthorized lookups or unusual access to, VIP accounts, or sudden spike in data queries, or, those kind of patterns that tend to show up right before, an insider fraud event. And right beneath that, this is where we add those behavioral and advanced analytics components, right? This is where you go beyond just the known pattern and look at how people that actually behave or normally behave, right? So when someone suddenly shifts, so for example, they're logging in odd hours or accessing systems that they rarely touch, those small red flags start to add up. And because many times fraudsters mimic normal behavior to stay below the radar, having something that understands sort of the user baseline and be flexible enough to change over time really becomes incredibly important. Now, at the center of all this is our what we call investigation center. This is where fraud analysts live. The dashboard, the alerts, the triage workflows, the advanced search, everything analysts need to quickly understand what happened. And I think this is a big differentiator. The whole idea here is the speed and clarity. So cutting down the time it takes to go from, something looks off to we know exactly what just happened, right? So from a monitoring standpoint, the coverage is intentionally broad. Like we've got mainframe monitoring on one side and modern web and SaaS monitoring on the other side. And then you've got, as I mentioned before, the record and replay technology, which gives our transparent screen-by-screen view of what actually occurred. Especially when you're dealing with insider fraud or potential of intentional data theft event, that kind of clarity is extremely powerful. And last I'd say is that the platform also supports, third-party integrations because, most organizations don't operate in a vacuum. They customers want a more holistic picture, but unless you do it right, that kind of consolidation with behavioral visibility, just centralizing the blind spots. So our ITM solution really designed to play well with that ecosystem and add intelligence on top of it. So really, the big takeaway is that insider threat isn't just about solving those narrow problems anymore. It's about defending against the full set of insider-driven risks. And really to have a unified way to monitor, to detect, to investigate, and ultimately want to deter those types of behaviors.
Yeah. So now moving further with the market trend and technology trend that we have discussed about, and focus on what actually differentiate modern insider risk management platform from a technology standpoint. So the first one, we have AI-driven behavior analytics and adaptive risk scoring. So as we have seen in the poll as well, the answer, and with this, I would just like to emphasize on what the vendors are doing into this capability or these differentiating factors. So traditional insider monitoring relies on predefined threshold or rules, which were like download volume, access frequency, and policy violation. The problem is that insider risk rarely behave in overtly malicious way at first, and the risk emerges gradually through subtle deviation from normal behavior. So now the recent IRM tool differentiates in advanced platform, which has the ability to build individualized behavioral baseline for each user and continuously adjust risk score based on evolving context of those users. So this approach reduces noise and false positive while surfacing high confidence risk signals that truly bonds the investigations. And for the security and risk team, this means fewer alerts, faster prioritization, and early intervention into the things that is happening within the insider abuse. And then we have context and intent-based early detection. So this is the major difference and it has the ability to correlate behavior with context and inferred intent of the users. So an action in isolation is accessing sensitive data, exporting files, or using administrative privilege. May be completely legitimate, as we can see. So the risk only becomes visible when that action evaluates or alongside contextual factors such as timing, access history, role alignment, and recent behavior changes, which leads IRM platform to focus on identifying intent drift that the users are doing, how they are behaving in the beginning, and how the behavior is being deviating from established norms in a way that suggests elevated risk. And this enables early detection and prevention action, which is shifting insider risk management from reactive investigation to proactive intervention, from incident escalation to material damage that can happen with these kind of behavior of the users. Then next we have forensic grade session, reconstruction and audit trials. So this is a highly regulated environment. The detection alone is insufficient. Organization must be able to reconstruct events in an defensible, auditable manner, and which can often takes weeks or months after incident occurs. So to mitigate this, forensic grade session reconstructions allow investigators to understand exactly what actions were taken in what sequence and with that impact. And with this timeline-based audit trial provide clarity and accountability and supporting internal investigation, regulatory inquiries, and legal procedures. So this capability transforms IRM from monitoring tool into a compliance-ready investigation platform. And so next we have unified cross-domain telemetry. So this is another key differentiator, and it has the ability to unify telemetry across multiple security and IT domains or the entire IT infrastructure. So insider risk rarely manifest in a single system. Signals are often distributed across identity platforms, endpoint, cloud services, collaborative tools, and transactional system. So here we demand advanced IRM platform that integrate these diverse data sources to eliminate blind spots and deliver holistic visibility into user behavior across all these platforms and tools. And by correlating identity, activity, and environmental context, organization can detect complex and multiple stage of insider scenarios that solids and that is present in siloed tools and that cannot be identified in a simple manner. So we required a unified and cross-domain telemetry that should be embedded into an IRM platform. And the last is about privacy first, integration first architecture. So true differentiators today requires balancing detection with privacy and trust. So as insider monitoring expand, our organization face increasingly scrutiny from regulators, work councils, and employees. And these platforms that embed privacy by design, anonymizations, and agentless data collection enable organizations to operate effectively into insider risk program without violating data protection law and eroding employee confidence, because this is again a matter of trust between the employer and the employees. And at the same time, integration first architecture allows IRM platform to automate escalation, response, and remediation across existing enterprise systems. So these are few of the differentiators that the vendors of IRM are working on, and they are embedding few of these differentiators into their platforms and tools. So I just wanted to ask Tomer if what bottom lines are including from these kind of differentiators into their platform.
You want to move to the next slide? Yeah, well, I mean, we talk to customers' technology team about insider threat. The conversation we tend to have is always starting with the same tension, where they, on one hand, they want deep visibility, but they can't really afford a disruption. And that's really exactly where Bottomline's approach really resonates with our customers, because everything begins with our non-invasive monitoring. And like already mentioned it before, but really with our technology, we don't really have any sort of a deployment of any agents of any sorts. We capture user activity across the systems that matter most, without touching sort of the underlying applications. So this way we sort of enable technology teams to get those real-time insights without compromising on privacy and definitely not compromising on operational stability. Now, normally we work with our customers to focus on the applications that truly matter, or that truly carry risk, right? Think of your core banking applications or payment systems or servicing platforms. Really, and we do that intentionally to avoid this overreach that could make customers uncomfortable. We're not capturing any personal chats or email traffic, at least not at this point. We're giving organizations exactly what they need to protect sensitive data and meet regulatory expectations, but we're not introducing any kind of intrusive surveillance that raises red flags with employees, auditors, and privacy teams. And where things really come together is how we help people understand what happened during a sequence of events. This is, again, key technology differentiator for us. Our recording replay capability really tells the full story visually. I kind of already mentioned that. But really what it helps customers do is to turn what used to be a slow, maybe log-driven analysis into more of a intuitive experience. And I think it's eventually it's what it comes down to, is much more intuitive experience. It's almost like rewinding, think of it as a security footage, right? So we're looking at what happened, step by step. What it gives our customers is that issues that previously took them days can now take minutes to resolve. And then analysts that used to go back and forth with trying to understand and connect the dots can now resolve it very quickly. Now, I already mentioned it, but at the core of this smooth experience that I just mentioned is a powerful analytics engine that learns from the organization itself. It draws from a dynamic set of insider risk scenarios and compares users to their peers and adopts that scoring as behaviors change. And I think, again, this is really, really important in the space today, where we have so many different signals coming from so many different places, and that changes behaviors. Now, it could be unusual logging, it could be inappropriate access to sensitive records, or it could be employee helping themselves in their own accounts. The system picks up what matters, and that's what important. As the team that use our platform resolve alerts, our scoring actually becomes much sharper over time, helping to reduce false positive and really improve accuracy without any sort of manual tuning. Now, I'd end up with saying that the real impact actually shows in the outcomes. Our customers are telling us that once they have, our product, our platform in place, investigations happen much faster. Compliance teams just feel more prepared, and any of the customer-facing teams can potentially resolve issues, before they actually escalate. That provides our customers with the ability to stay ahead of the curve in today's environment, where risk is constantly changing.
Yeah, thank you for this. And moving to next slide, we'll be talking about what is Spark Matrix and what are the parameters on which we evaluate vendors for IRM study. So Spark Matrix is our proprietary tool, which is based on two parameters: technology excellence and customer impact. So in technology excellence, we evaluate vendors on three major factors, which is breadth and depth of their offering, application diversity and use cases, and technology vision and strategy that they are focusing on in upcoming year. And for the customer impact scale, we have how well the vendor is present into the market in terms of geography, in terms of industry, and what is the proven record, what is the domain knowledge and industry experience of the vendor into this particular area, and the ease of use and implementation of the platforms that is being done by the vendors for their end users. And moving to next slide, we have our parameters on which we have evaluated vendors for Insider Risk Management Spark Matrix framework. So I'll start with technology excellence. So the first is advanced threat detection. So this is the most heavily weighted criteria because insider risk is fundamentally a detection problem, and we assess how effectively a platform identifies insider threats using behavioral analytics, anomaly detection, contextual correlation, and how the platforms that move beyond static rule to adaptive identity centric detection and model score higher as they better suited to uncover subtle and evolving insider behaviors. Then we have user and device monitoring. Here we evaluate visibility across user activity and endpoints. This includes monitoring access patterns, data interaction, and device level behavior across on-prem and remote environment. Next, we have alert, response, workflow, and investigation. So detection without response create operational overload, and we examine vendors on how alerts are prioritized, how investigation are structured, and whether response workflow are automated or manual, and how the platform that enable efficient triage and guided investigation demonstrate higher operational maturity. Then we have analytics, dashboard, and reporting. So this criteria focus mostly on how insights are presented and operationalized within an organization. We accesses dashboard, risk visualization, reporting depth, and ability to support both security team and business stakeholders with their dashboard of IRM platform. Then we have competitive differentiation strategy. So here we look on the platform that differentiates itself in technology wise, and whether through advanced analytics, fraud convergence, forensic depth, industry specific capabilities. So all these things is taken into consideration into this parameter. And the next is integration and interoperability. So again, as we have mentioned several times, that IRM should be integrated across all security tools and stacks from IAM, SIM, SOAR, EDR, cloud, collaboration tools. So we are evaluating vendors, how effectively they are integrating into all these platforms and how unified data telemetry is being collected from these platforms as well. And last is vision and roadmap. So here we assess vendors' long-term and short-term vision, particularly around AI, behavioral analytics, Gen AI risk, privacy, and evolving workforce models. And moving toward a customer impact scale, we have a various set of subparameters starting from product strategy and performance. So here we assess a vendor's platform stability, scalability, and performance in the production environment, how they are performing, how scalable they are. And this includes deployment architecture, updated updated versions of the platform, and the ability to support large and complex enterprises. The next is market presence. So this criteria evaluates a geographic reach, customer base, partnership ecosystem, and overall visibility of IRM market of a particular vendor. Then there is proven record. So we look here at the real customer's outcome and how they have deployed and how they have easily used the vendor's platform with various kind of use cases and reference that we collect from the vendor as well as the end users. And last, we have ease of deployment and use cases. So again, here we see and we evaluate vendors based on how easy the platform is to deploy, configure, and operate, including analyst workflow, administrative overhead, and the last one is about customer service excellence, which supports quality, responsiveness, and expertise that are critical inside a risk scenario. This criteria reflects the vendor's ability to support the customers during sensitive investigation and after-sales service that they are offering. And finally, we have unique value propositions where we see whether the customers is valuable, is having the value, and they have a better fraud convergence, stronger compliance, alignment, and superior analyst experience. So these are few of the parameters and evaluation criteria that we have taken into consideration while evaluating vendor on IRM Spark matrix. So with the next slide, we have the Bottomline position on Spark matrix inside the risk management 2025, and Bottomline has been positioned as a leader into this matrix with various differentiating factors and with various things that they are helping end users with. So the first is about agentless and real-time network capture. So Bottomline captures user interaction via non-invasive network-based collection that ingest activity from web, SaaS applications, and legacy apps in real time. And this reduces endpoint deployment overhead and helps cover bring your own device and remote workers. Then we have a patented record and replay. So Bottomline's record and replay reconstruct session visually. So they have screen transition, clicks, field values, and stores encrypted recording for compliance grade retention. And with this, customer report dramatic reduction in investigation time as a result. Then we have 100 plus pre-configured financial fraud scenarios and transaction awareness. So Bottomline provides out-of-the-box internal fraud scenario and transaction aware analytics tailored for financial services and transaction aware, which is accelerating time to value for banks and payment organizations and regulatory infrastructures. Then we have broad legacy and modern app coverage. So Bottomline supports again mainframe terminal protocols, which is 3270 and 5250, and integrates with modern web SaaS and API endpoints and publish integrations into Datadog marketplace for mainframe monitoring. Then we have unified case management and cross-functional evidence sharing. So Bottomline's enterprise case management consolidates alerts, session and risk scoring into a single system of record, enabling SOC, fraud, HR, legal, and audit team to collaborate and retrieve case-ready evidence without technical queries. And this accelerates investigation and support defensible audit artifacts. So these are few of the things and highlights about Bottomlines, because of which they have been placed as a market leader into Insider Risk Management Spark Matrix study. And with this, I hand over to Anish.
Well, thank you, Sophia, for taking us through the IR market, and thank you, Thomas, for taking us through the Bottomline's approach. Again, to all our viewers, feel free to drop your Q&A below. We may not be able to answer all the Q&As, but we'll definitely get back to them via our via mail. But to start with, I guess, guys, we have a couple of questions from our audience. They would surely like to know, or surely would want you guys to explain on how Bottomline is able to monitor across all channels, and what is it that that they can expect all level of efforts customers should expect for a full integration.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that. So, I mean, it's all in the magic of our sniffing technology. I mean, it works by capturing user activity directly from the traffic that is flowing between the user and the application. Whether the application is a mainframe application, web application, or SaaS, or even proprietary systems. I'm seeing that, especially in the mainframe side of things, there's really no code changes needed whatsoever. So really, the amount of effort needed to support or enable this technology is zero. We've seen examples of our customers being able to stand up a proof of value or proof of concept within 4 to 8 hours. When it comes to web applications, things become a little bit more involved because of the complexity of the web application themselves. But really, we're talking about minimal changes, just to enable that technology. Really, I will reiterate on what I've said before and what Sophia said, which is it's really non-invasive at all, which means that the customers don't need to enable sort of those long deployment cycles or IT involvement. We do support legacy protocols like 3270 and 5250. I think this is again a big differentiator for us, especially in environments where customers have those legacy systems, but they're unable or don't want to make any updates to those systems because of the lack of talent or the technology risk of making those updates. Therefore, we sort of, with our technology, they don't really need to do anything. We just listen to the traffic and then could show value very, very quickly.
Thanks for that, Tomar. That brings me my next question. How exactly is Bottomline's adaptive risk scoring is tuned for different employee segments?
I'll take that as this question as well. I mean, adaptive scoring is really built on behavioral analytics that learns what normal looks like for different user groups, right? So you take your full-time employees, your contractors, your new hires, your privileged users, your operational staff. You could define your own set of peer groups. Each one of them might have a typical way to behave around different systems. And then as you pull this in, the system considers contextual factors like, as I said, access pattern and transaction activity and role changes. And it adjusts the risk scores automatically as the behaviors evolve, right? So this is in a support with advanced analytics we've been developing for many, many years. And what it does, it really helps to surface the signals that matter most for each segment and reduces the false positive, which is always the case where you have a high number of alerts that cannot be worked by existing set of personnel that is responsible for it. It's always a big need for customers to allow for less false positive alerts. And what it also does, and that technology again around the behavioral analytics is allowing to really prioritize the riskiest events, right? It's both reducing the number of alerts, but really focusing on the ones that are highest risk and doing very, very accurately. So in this case, it's not a one size fits all. Many of our customers have their own set of configurations or analytics designed for their own business use cases. And many of our customers continuously recalibrate based on patterns that are showing up across the organization.
Well, our audience have a real-time question that they want to ask with respect to when hackers use stolen credentials and behave like normal employees, and when employees use GenAI and collaboration tools for everyday work, how do we really tell the difference between a trusted insider and an attacker?
Yeah, so yeah, I can take this. So, like in practice, I think it's very difficult to differentiate between an attacker or an legitimate user or a trusted insider. So, because once an attacker gains a valid credential, they stop looking like an external threat. They log in normally, use approved tools, access systems, and they are authorized to use. And to operate during business hours, they are doing the normal work that any other employee is doing. So at the same time, employees themselves are working in a new way, sharing data in collaboration platforms, moving information into Gen AI tools, and automating tasks across cloud service. So now the only reliable way to tell the difference is by observing how behavior unfolds over time. And this requires time. We cannot detect an external attackers at the first time. We need to understand their behavior, whether the action is aligned with a user historical pattern, roles expectation, timing, and sequence of activity that they were used to do. And with this, distinction between insider and attackers have effectively disappeared. And what matters now is whether the behavior itself deviates from what is normal for that identity. And for that, we have discussed that various differentiating factors and capabilities that the vendors are offering is like dynamic risk scoring, adaptive patterns, machine learning. Things is being utilized to identify these kind of behaviors in a predictive manner rather than reacting on it after anything wrong happens. So I think that is the case.
Tumar, you want to add anything to that, or I'll just jump on to our next question? We do have a couple of questions.
Yeah, I mean, just one word is that you can't really rely on identity alone anymore. I mean, stolen credentials, Gen AI assisted activity, external to the organization, attacking from the inside, or collaborating or collusion with the inside employees. I mean, you can't really look at just the identity by itself. So instead of focusing on the who logged in or who performed, really we focus on how and how they behave once they're inside. I think that kind of resonates with the sort of behavior analytics, the peer group comparison, and all this contextual risk scoring that I mentioned before.
Okay.
I guess that's where Bottomline's patent record and replay also stand outside, right? Well, I'll just, I know we spoke about record and replay multiple times today's session, but our audience, I guess they still want to know on what exactly does Bottomline's record and replay forensic grade, and when do customers rely on it during investigations?
I mean, I'll take that. Record replay is forensic grade because it allows for reconstruction of the exact user session, screen by screen, based on captured network traffic and application responses. So it shows eventual analysts, whoever is responsible for investigation, what the user saw, what they clicked, what they typed, and how the system reacted to those actions. So that level of detail goes far beyond logs, right? Which sometimes could miss the context of the field level details, and many times they're not even captured, especially in legacy application, might not even been built to capture that field level detail. So customer rely on it when they need clear evidence, right? So insider fraud investigations, data theft cases, disputed transactions, sensitive policy violations, even regulatory reviews. We've seen customers in it on that scope as well. And especially in a powerful environment where as I mentioned before, logs could be incomplete, right? And not because of not wanting to get that data, it's because that data might not be even available or could be easily manipulated.
Well, thanks for that again, Tomar. I'll just have one last question from the audience. Maybe either of you can take up this question. They just want more details on what exactly Bottomline is working on, especially on introducing more advanced AI capabilities to the product.
Yeah, so we're taking a very practical phase approach when it comes to AI innovation, specifically focusing on making insider risk detection smarter, being able to detect it earlier and have it more explainable. I think that's a key area of focus for us. I mean, today we're expanding our AI research in 3 big areas. One is what we refer to as adaptive risk scoring. The other one is the earlier detection. And then the last one is sort of the deepening the correlation across user, transaction, and system level signals. However, I mean, this is the core for where we spend the time, but we go even further, right? So in the next 12 to 24 months, we're introducing natural language model insights, which is something that our customers are asking us to provide, things like fraud metric explainers and trend identification and risk and compliance review assistance. We've also been experimenting with and looking to roll out some AI assistance for helping our customers to literally understand things like documentation, configuration of the system, making that learning and everyday use of our platform, much faster and way more intuitive. So that's where we spend the majority of our investment right now.
Well, exciting year ahead for Bottomline, definitely. And once again, thank you so much, Toma, for sparing us your time today. And thank you, Sophia, for sparing your time. I'm sure our audience definitely got a clarity on Bottomline's approach and a clarity on insider risk management market as a whole. With that, I wind up today's session. And for all those who've missed today's session, please do visit qksgroup.com. And then you stay updated to our upcoming webinars, and then do follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube to know more about insider risk management and other markets parallelly. Thank you so much, guys, once again.